the midpoint times the frequency, or the frequency times the midpoint. This multiplication doesn't matter how you multiply, right? 3 times 4 is the same as 4 times 3. So once you have this thing here, which is, again, we have our midpoint, we have the multiplication of the midpoint times the frequency. The third step is we need to add all of this value up, right? We need to add all of this value, which is the 306 plus the 856 plus the 1792 plus the 1521 plus the 854 plus the 254 plus the 332. You have to take each of them and add them up, which is the result of the multiplication between the midpoint times the frequency. And if you add them up, that is your step 3, which is 57, 15. And once you have this thing here, which is, again, once you have this thing here, you need to take the 57, 15 and divide it by the total number of your frequency, which is, in this case, the number of the state, which is the 50 state we have, which is, again, 57, 15 divided by 50 to give you the average temperature. The average temperature that you have is 114.3. So again, this is what we have, or this is what we need to do if we have a group of data, right? If you have a individual data, is easy. You just take each of your individual data up, add them up. But this one, we don't know our individual data. We know 3 states have the temperature between 100 and 104, but we don't know the exact temperature. We don't know, is it 100, or is it 101, or is it 102, or is it 103, or is it 104? We don't know the actual 3, so we have to find a number, which is we call a midpoint, to represent that group. Okay, and again, this thing here is basically just an estimate, right? We don't know the exact data. We just estimate that the average temperature for this state based on this thing here is 114. Okay? So again, that's the idea of this group here in terms of the group data. Okay? Question with this group data here. All right. So thank you. I just keep on checking. Hopefully that the video or this item is not froze up on me again. So here come, we're done with 11.3. Now we go to 11.4. So 11.4, there are 2 things. Actually, there are 3 things. There are 3 things that we try to calculate. But again, the second thing or the third thing is within the calculation, so we don't have to do any separate. But let's take a look. The first thing we have is how or what is the range. So the range of the data, which is, again, the range of the data is easy enough. All you need to do is take the highest value, subtract the lowest value, right? That's all you need to do to find the range, is take the highest data, whatever your highest data is, minus the lowest data, because we just want to know how far apart is your data, right? So 11.4, which is we measure the variation, which is variation is basically ask you how spread out is your data. How from the smallest data to the highest data, how many different units are in between, right? And that's the range. That's the first item we're going to do, is to find a range, which is, and again, please don't mistake between the range versus the mid-range. The mid-range last time is we take the highest plus the lowest divided by 2. We want to find the middle, right? If they ask you for the range, all you need to do is take the highest minus the lowest. We want to know between this item here, what is how far apart from your low to your high. Okay, so let's take a look at this example here. They say, given the weight of the dog below, so we have, if you count the data, there are 12 dogs here and their respective weight, right? Find the mean, find the median, and find the range of the data. So again, how do we find the mean? We just go back to find the mean. Reminder, to find the mean, all we need to do is take each of this data. And again, as you can see, I fixed my point. Again, take each of your data, add them up, and divide it by the total number of data. So if you take each of your data, which is 70, 73, and so on and so forth, add them up and divide by 12, you will see that the mean weight of this 12 dogs is 64.42, right? So this is the mean weight of this 4 dog that we have here. So once you have this thing here, which is the mean, which is very easy, add each of your data and divide by the total number of data. Now, how do we find a median? Well, to find a median, reminder, looking at this thing here, we have 12 data. And if we have 12 data, meaning we have an even number of data. And if we have an even number of data, reminder that we need to find a middle 2 number. But ladies and gentlemen, please remember to put your data in order. Don't just jump in and find a middle 2 number and add them up. Don't just go in here and say, oh, 85 and 40 and add them up and divide by 2. That's not what we have here, right? You know, sometimes coincidentally, the answer is right, but most of the time it's wrong, right? So the first thing is you need to put them in order, and basically you just move, you know, cross out, move toward the middle. And in this case, if you keep on if you cross the 30 and the 125, 40 and the 85 and so on and so forth, you end up with this last 2 number, or the middle 2 number. And the middle 2 number is 60. So again, the mean here is 60, right? You just add them up and divide by 2, you still have 60. So again, the mean, not the mean, sorry, the median is here, which is in the same ballpark of the mean, which is 64.442, right? Or around the same area, right? But again, that's what we're looking for, is the middle number is the median here, okay? So again, looking at this thing here, how do we find a range? Which is, again, since we put them in order, the range is basically we take the highest data, which is 125, subtract the 30 to give us the range is 95. Meaning from the smallest weight, the light dog is 30 pounds, and the heaviest dog is 125. There are 95 pound difference among the two, right? So again, that's the idea, or this is what we have, is we want to find how far apart from the smallest data to the highest, or the biggest data, okay? So again, that's what your range is in the sense of this thing here. Okay? And again, hopefully you guys see that the range is not as difficult like before, or compared to chapter 10, chapter 11 is not difficult. It's tedious, a lot of small calculation, you know, tedious calculation, but it's not that difficult. So let's take a look at this thing here, which is, this is my goal, or this is the item that we want to go over today, which is how do we find the sample variance and the sample standard deviation. So the sample variance is basically the approximate average of the square distance, right? The square distance is basically tell you how far of each of your data from the mean, okay? And again, now the standard deviation, which is again the average difference from your data to the mean. Meaning, again, there are some data below the mean, there are some data above the mean, and again, we want to know what is the average difference among all of this difference away from the mean. Okay, so looking at this thing here, this is our goal here in 11.4. This is the 2 goal that we have, is pretty much one goal is how do we find the standard deviation. Okay, and again, to find the standard deviation, there are 6 steps. And again, don't fake yet. It's the 6 step is very, very doable step. Okay, so again, what are the 6 steps to find the standard deviation here, or the variance and the standard deviation? And again, we try to see how far is your data from the. So the first thing we have to do is we need to find the mean, right? The first step, we need to find the mean, we need to find the average, we need to know what is the middle of my data. Once you find the mean, now we have to find the deviation. The deviation is basically how far are you from the data, right? Given whatever the data is, not from the data, sorry.